Good afternoon to all fellow islanders and other interested parties. My name is Vanessa Torre and I work at the Ministry of Economic Development of Curaçao. I'm very happy you are joining us this week at the Virtual Island Summit, a unique platform where we can discuss, inform each other, and network extensively on issues affecting islands. I'm one of the ambassadors of the Virtual Island Summit, and together with my fellow ambassadors, Runi Calmera and Nelida Catalina, we welcome you to the summit and our session, Island to Island Solutions, Curaçao's technology-driven companies. Curaçao measures 444 square kilometers and has approximately 160,000 inhabitants. The island has an interesting geographical position in the southern Caribbean, right on the coast of Venezuela, with several natural deep sea ports and fantastic IT infrastructure at its disposal. The majority of the population speaks Papiamentu, which is our mother language, and communicates in English, Spanish, and Dutch, some even more languages. Our aim for the future is dynamic growth on a sustainable basis, resulting in a balance between the economic, social, and ecological dimension. Technology and services are at the heart of a new trade development roadmap for Curaçao endorsed by the government last April, which identifies technology, in particular digital solutions, as a way to strengthen and link all economic activity in Curaçao. This is what we are going to feature this afternoon. Solutions developed in Curaçao by local professionals, which are duly tested and tailored to serve other islands. The following solutions will be showcased: the use of sustainable technologies with existing island resources, water, sun, and wind, by Omega Engineering, the delivery of high-end services in the information value chain, stock, investing, wealth management by DCSX, Dutch Caribbean Securities Exchange, software solutions for tax, automatic exchange of information, social security and permits and licensing by Bearingpoint Caribbean, and solutions for secure digital banking, as well as COVID-19 citizen mobility and traveler border control management systems by IBIS Management. I will start with our first speaker this afternoon, which is Tony Van Sprang, Jocelyn Navarro, and Luciana Petit. Many islands, small islands, depend on tourism for their foreign exchange, jobs, and tax revenues. However, one of the main costs on hotels, apartments, income statements is electricity. On a national level, fossil fuel costs for electricity is one of the highest import components of the balance of payments, responsible for outflow of precious foreign reserves. While traditional technologies focus on reducing the fossil fuel usage, innovative smart brains use the local resources every island has, the ocean. If you want to reduce your electricity costs by using innovative blue ocean technology, listen to this innovative and proven solution of the inventor of Curaçao-born OWAC trademark technology. With you, Anthony Van Sprang.
Good greetings, good afternoon from Curaçao. My name is Tony Van Sprang. I'm the CEO of Omega Engineering. Especially my fellow inhabitants of tropical islands and tropical regions. I will do a presentation about an OWAC system or a cooling system that we have developed here in Curaçao after many, many years and deployed in one of the government buildings and is running now for more than 6 years. My colleagues will also go later into a more specific area of that. Yeah, that is after that. I will start with the introduction. Okay, our topic is ocean water assisted cooling, or OWAC technology. We have developed that over a period of about 13 years. And why did we do that? Okay, as islanders, we all have common challenges, yeah, especially in the tropical region. We have very high cost of fuel and electricity. The cost of water, if it's available, is also very high because it's produced through a mechanical procedure most of the time. We have a scarcity of natural water, and we have year-round high temperatures and high humidity, in the tropical regions. On top of that, we have poor agriculture, a very poor agricultural climate. We will get back on the last one with one of my colleagues. So what we require is a year-round, or we have a year-round requirement for cooling, and storage facilities. That demand is very, very high. If you look at the statistics, most of the electrical energy is used for cooling. But we also have natural resources to our disposition, which are sun, wind, and ocean. These resources, they work in two ways. They give us the opportunity to develop high-class tourism, but the same industry is very, very energy consuming, and mostly in the form of climatizing buildings, for hotels, restaurants, and other supporting buildings. Okay, typically, if you look at the statistics, the cooling process as we know it is quite an inefficient process. And why is that? Because most of the equipment dissipates the heat to air, and air is a very poor, or it's a good insulator and not a good conductor. So about 60 to 70% of the gross capacity of everything that is generated and distributed in the electrical grid will be wasted on cooling. There are some ways to do it a little bit more efficient when you do it with cooling towers, but then you're going to use potable water in most times, and that is also a converted version of energy. Fresh water. Sorry, fresh water is poorly available. So the conclusion is that islands are bound to using inefficient air-cooled processes for their buildings. Okay, in our approach to crack this nut, we went back to the resources that we have available. Sun and wind we use typically to generate electricity, so to convert it into usable energy. The ocean is very poorly used. It's almost none. So we focused on using the ocean and using the ocean to enhance the efficiency of the cooling process, because most of the energy is going into the cooling process. So it's also something we have in common as islands, that we all have an ocean available. The definition of an island is that it's surrounded by water. So what we did is we did a lot of research and testing, and to make seawater available in the cooling process, because seawater is very, very corrosive, and we had to get rid of that corrosiveness. Okay, in the end, we managed to do that, and we created the OWAC technology. So OWAC is basically high technology, a marriage between high technology and the ocean. I will show you now a very short video of 1 minute, so you can get an impression of what we have running.
Hi, Tony. There's no sound on the video, so maybe you want to talk us through it as it's showing.
Oh, okay. There's no sound. Well, it's only music, so I just continue with it.
Yeah, maybe you could just talk us through the slides as they're going through.
Yeah, here it's all on. So. Okay, that was a short video to give you an impression of what OWAC entails. Okay, the impact of it is that in practice, we reduce the energy consumption for cooling with 60 to 75%, sometimes even higher than this bracket. There is no negative impact on marine life because we don't use any chemicals or anything that can damage it. And we have a tremendous impact on the CO2 reduction, the footprint of that. So for every ton of cooling, we take 1 car off the road on average. So by applying this technology, we reduce the cost of doing business on a micro and a macro scale. Yeah, we will come back to that in a later presentation. And we enrich the island economy with new spin-off industries, yeah, such as agriculture. That's one that's very important. But also storage and trading of refrigerated or cooled perishables. And also very important is that we relieve the island's electrical infrastructure. Yeah, now we are running on the top of what we can generate here on the island. And if there are more extensions of power demand, we will have to invest an enormous amount of money again, you know, to keep up with that. By using OWAC, we cut the energy demand and we delay these capital investments. Yeah, so these are the pinpoint important issues about OWAC. Further, my two colleagues, Joseline Navarro and Luciana Petit, will highlight OWAC in cooling of individual buildings and complete city districts, and also OWAC in the agricultural development, because that's a very important and very attractive point of application. I thank you for your attention, and I will give the word to Joseline Navarro.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, good afternoon. I will continue talking about comfort cooling as one of the applications of OWAC. So to get inside the working principle, we use seawater as a heat exchange, as a heat sink. This seawater is taken to the chiller plant through an intake that is very close to the shoreline and protected with a natural barrier. And it cools the mechanical process of a high efficient chiller that runs with COP between 7.5 to 9. All this without jeopardizing the marine life. We don't use chemicals, and also with any mechanical disturbance to the ocean. So this is a hyper-efficient cooling system deployed with a combination of several disciplines, mechanical, civil, bio, and control engineering all together. And it runs consistently and without high maintenance, which that is important. Our pilot is actually installing a public government of 2,000 square meter 2-story, and it has been running consistently over the past 6 years. The energy footprint reduction has been from 45 watts square meter to 9.5 watts square meter, with utility savings of $1,000 per month. And in this 6 years, OWAC has removed the equivalent of 100 mid-size car off the road. So the situation here is that mainstream technologies leave this region of the world in its shade, have focused the technologies and the research in the continental mainlands as USA, Europe, and Asia. But we, people from the Caribbean, have the ability to tackle our own problems. And that's what OWAC is, a local solution for a local problem. So the hospitality sector that is very close to the shorelines commercial and public buildings, with OWAC system, we can deploy modular setups of the required cooling capacity, as the technology is scalable and portable, and ocean water is used as the prime resource for efficient cooling. And it's also bankable, with return of investment between 1.6 and 5.6 years. But this is small scale comfort cooling. And what we can do to one building, we can do it for a collection of buildings through district cooling systems with OWAC. A district cooling is a centralized production and distribution of cooling energy of a collection of buildings within a district. And building owners that cannot afford an OWAC system, with a district cooling will be able to have efficient cooling within their facilities. That's the biggest advantage. District coolings are attractive in high building cluster cities with high cooling loads and with climatic weathers, hot climates throughout the year, which is the situation in the Caribbean and also in the tropical regions. And feasibility study has been deployed in our office in combination of OWAC with district cooling, and it has yielded prospect results. Because apart from reducing overall plant spaces, operational and maintenance costs are reduced up over 20% per year, and energy efficiency is improved substantially. District cooling with OWAC is a robust business model that complies customer needs and expectations. And the benefits in the macro and microeconomics, we can say for the economy, that it lowers substantially the outflows of foreign currency. So in this saving, it's something that the island nations can use to invest in their economical growth. For the energy company, primary energy will be used more efficiently. For the city, it becomes business friendly. It also creates sustainable society and work opportunities. And for the building owner, it lowers operation costs. And all this lead to islands with an inclusive, greener economy. So as I said before, OWAC is a proven technology. It has been running for the past 6 years in our pilot, but district coolings are proven technologies too. Now the rationale with district cooling is that reduce the installation of peak load cooling systems, individual cooling systems, and OWAC is hyper efficient. So the combination of both is immediately a reduction in the energy consumption. And that's a huge benefit, but it's a commercial way of seeing it. There's also a public view. With district cooling, the installation of refrigerants reduce substantially. Also, our feasibility studies have shown that district cooling with OWAC reduce up to 60% the greenhouse gases emissions, which is actually very important to keep the global temperature rise below the 2 Celsius degree. As I said, the primary energy will be used more efficiently. So the share of renewable within the grid will increase. And also it changed the profile of the island nations. Now they will be more greener. And with that, more business possibilities it will bring more business possibility, which connect this public view again to the commercial view. So the result is a cooling strategy that is sustainable, competitive, secure, and decarbonized. Now I will call my colleague Lucy.
Good afternoon, everybody. As we have heard, OWAC technology is not only to cool buildings. This is one of the applications that OWAC has, and it is really one important one. It is the possibility to have a technology-driven agriculture system. This is more or less how it is built, SWOT, actual agriculture sector in island nations. We do have strength, that is the human resources that we count on with the persons that we have in the island. But we do have a lot of weakness and threats. We depend on the climate. We don't have continuous supply of essential products. It is uncontrollable, the quality of the agricultural products, low education level, and we have a very low availability of water and land. We do have droughts and high dependency foreign suppliers and policies, and we have a harsh weather conditions. But hopefully we do have also opportunities. So we can have a new business activity for the nation with a high-tech environment, production of high-quality crops with a predictable outcome, highly intense use of available land with low water consumptions, and competitive year-round crop production for the internal and external markets. This is data from the CBS, the Central Bureau of Statistics from Curaçao, when it is important to see that the second, after excluding the oil products, the second biggest one is the food, and it has been for the past years. It has been the same behavior as you see from 2015 to 2019. It has been the same behavior, and it is a fact that we don't have agriculture as a business activity in our island and in every island. According to the Sustainable Development Goals, we have for the Caribbean sub-region, the food and nutrition security challenges can be addressed through the consumption of healthy, diversified diets that incorporates more locally produced foods. But this is only suitable and feasible if we do use the technology in our benefits. So OWAC, having OWAC as a way to cool these greenhouses helps with the number 1, 2, and 3 goals of the sustainable development, which are no poverty, zero hunger, and good health and well-being. Having OWAC cooling greenhouses, we do have a closed environment, and we have full control independent on the outdoor climate conditions. We have year-round growing period up to 18 hours per day. The water consumption is reduced up to 90%. The reduction of the cooling-related energy is reduced up to 70%. Substantially lower dependency import. Export opportunities, and not only supply the local market, but creates a new business activity and spin-offs for the nation.
Lucy, we have to wrap up.
Okay, so in conclusion, with OWAC, using OWAC is just a win-win situation, and OWAC is just too good not to be true. Thanks for your attention.
Yes, you can stop the share. Okay, the COVID-19 pandemic demands costly government support to sustain island economies in a time when public revenues have decreased drastically. Less tourism, for example, has led to fewer taxes on goods and services, less taxes on income. Now, many governments' budgets are out of balance, and the debts are increasing. Without proper finance, small island governments cannot fund sustainable development, investments, and social expenditures. Unfortunately, many islands are planning for painful budget cuts and increased taxes. Today, we will hear about a more productive alternative, which is the increase of fiscal sustainability by focusing on uncollected taxes. Our local software developers at Bearingpoint are experts on this topic. They are helping tax administrations to increase tax compliance by delivering better services to taxpayers. Now, this is a digital nomad. The speaker is a passionate believer in digital solutions to improve island communities. He has visited 23 islands to help governments achieve their goals, and he is a public speaker and part of the lecturer at the University of Aruba. This is the senior manager of business development of Bearingpoint Caribbean. Let's welcome Menno Vink, Mr. Menno Vink, to the stage.
Thank you so much for that introduction, Rooney. As you can see in the background, I have Curaçao in the background of my office. As fellow islanders, I'm sure you can recognize our pride to showcase our island. And of course, it's a pleasure today to not only showcase our island, but also specifically to show that we have fertile ground in Curaçao for technology solutions. I also want to thank James Elmore and the full team, including all the ambassadors, for organizing this event, really showing that in these times, it's still possible to have very productive sessions as we're making use of virtual means to have a conference like this and gain all the insights from all the speakers. Of course, being virtual also has challenges, but it also offers opportunities. And this is something I can recognize when I look, for example, at my 7-year-old daughter. If I see how these small children have adapted to the times, using technology now for virtual schooling and making it work. And that's awesome to see. And specifically what I like to see about these kids is how they use their imagination. For my daughter, it's as if she's together with her friends in the classroom while she's joining them virtually. So today I want to also ask you to use your imagination and let's make this as interactive as possible, even though it's online. And having said that, I want you to imagine that I'm together with you right now. I am handing you over physically a piece of paper. And what I want to ask you is to please write down on this piece of paper that I just handed over to you, of course, in your imagination, one dream that you have for your island. It can be anything. Let's say I have a big bag of money that I can give you for you to use to make this happen for your island. What would it be? I can share it with you, for example, in my opinion, sports is very important for the development of the youth. So I would make it possible to invest in facilities and give everybody free access to sports to a certain age. So whatever it is, maybe it's more hospitals, maybe it's more schools, whatever you think is important, write it down. And now after you've written it down on your piece of paper, please make this small ball and hand it over back to me. So we're doing it virtually, but in our imagination, I'm now collecting each of your dreams and having it all together now in this cup. So basically I have all your dreams and I'm sure there's some excellent and great ideas for the islands in these cups. So what I want to do with all your dreams now is let's process it. And with processes, I mean, let's take step 1 and change it from one cup to another. As you can see, some of these fall down out of the cup. I'm very sorry for that, but it's part of the processing of dreams. Now step 2. Again, some have fallen out. I'm not sure which ones. I'm not sure whose dream this was, but fortunately we have some left. So as I go on processing these dreams, what will happen is not all of them will be left over in one of these cups. Now this is a metaphor. And the metaphor is really that in my example, I said we have a bag of money. In reality, to make things happen for our islands, we need public funding. And public funding is, of course, not unlimited. So we really want to make sure that we, as governments, collect enough funding to invest in these priorities and to make these dreams happen for our islands. And of course, my example was not really about dreams falling out. It was about revenues being lost. Because the same thing really happens when we look at taxes. We know we can collect taxes to make things possible, but we also know that on our islands, we have informal economy. We know that not all taxpayers are registered. That's already where we're losing a lot of our funding. We know also that those registered, not all of them will file their taxes. And not all of them will pay their taxes. Not all of them will file the full amount of transactions they've had. So all of these are leakages that at the end of the day, make it a hard decision to choose which of our projects to make happen and which of them cannot be funded. So today I want to present to you, and I start sharing my screen for that, a presentation on how we can tackle some of these challenges. So starting with this presentation, I want to show you a statue that I like a lot. It's a piece of art from a French artist in Marseille, in the port. And what I think it really visualizes here is the way tax administrations look at the population. Of course, tax administrations work based on information that they gathered during the process, but they never have a complete overview of the taxpayer. And it's in these blind spots that tax evasion happens. So the real challenge here for most governments is how to close these gaps, how to get an overview of really what's happening in the country, and this way having everybody to contribute their fair share. So this is also translated to revenues. And I have a simple graph here. I have some graphs, I promise we won't make it too academic. Let's keep it very simple. On the horizontal axis, you can see in this graph the number of taxpayers that are registered. In no country that's 100%. There will always be transactions happening but that the government does not know of. On the vertical axis, we have the taxes and social contributions that are actually imposed and collected. Again, the same thing. People will not declare, people will under-declare, and then you will not be able to collect what you are supposed to be collecting. That's basically the gray square we see in this graph. It's always not the full amount that should be collected. It's a negative thing, but you can see it also as a positive thing. It means there is growth possibility. Even small increases in the number of registered taxpayers and the imposed and collected tax fees will mean very, very large extra revenues for the country, revenues that can be used for important projects in the country. Gladly, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. There's many theory, many books on how to increase tax compliance in a country. One of those theories is the compliance model by the Australian Tax Office that shows you in the blue visual the various segments of taxpayers. And you will see that most people are compliant. Many will attempt to be compliant, but they might fail. Some, of course, don't want to be compliant, and some deliberately choose to fraud. On the left, in gray, you would see various strategies that are possible to manage this kind of taxpayer. And you will see it's about making it easy, it's about helping to comply, it's about deterring by detection, and it's about using, of course, the various tools that legislation provides. The good news here is that most of these taxpayers are in the segments where good service to taxpayers and helping your taxpayers will have the biggest impact on tax compliance. And that is, of course, easier said than done. So let's look at how islands are performing on tax administration performance. So what we're talking about here really is about how to avoid those leaks that I just showed in my example. How do we make sure, for example, that the registration is more complete? And if we look at how tax administrations are performing, it's of course hard to find good information on islands. Islands are very diverse, but I did come across, for example, on this visual that I am borrowing from a publication of the CIAT, the Central Inter-American Tax Center. And CIAT showed that there's a correlation between the level of income of a country and the way they are collecting taxes. What you would see is that actually the countries that need those revenues the most are collecting the least. That's based on a ratio of public revenue compared to the size of the economy. And I can assure you that this graph is very similar if we would have looked at islands. Many islands are more towards the 17.1 and the 24.9 ratios we see on the screen than they are to the 30 plus ratios that we would see in more developed economies. So really, what is the challenge here? Is it because we don't have enough people working at the tax administration? What is it based on? Well, of course, one of the things is indeed the number of taxpayers served by each tax administration employee. You can see there again why you would expect that the countries that needs those revenues the most would be investing most in tax administrations, often those investments are not done in the local tax administration. In this graph, you could see that in the lower income countries, each tax official will need to handle over 12,000 taxpayers. You can imagine the challenges only of that kind of numbers. Another thing there is, for example, the software that these tax administrations are using. And I want to use an example to show that. That example is Tarat. I know the letters on this sheet are way too small to read, but basically I just want to mention that Tarat was designed by the IMF to really calculate how well the tax administration is performing. At our office, 30 of us did a course to understand better how to see each of these aspects, which are basically the core tasks of a tax administration. What is interesting here is that most of these core tasks should be supported by technology. These days, technology is offering so many tools to improve all these performance areas that it's a pity that certain countries cannot use this kind of technology to make that happen. So, for example, if I take the dark green performance outcome area, as it's called, it's about the integrity of the registered taxpayer base. This is about, for example, making sure that you have everybody registered in your taxpayer base. So some questions that you might solve with technology there. Are you, for example, interfacing with other departments of government where, for example, permits, licensing is done, where people are registered when they move into the country? These kind of databases often are not linked, and the tax, even though it's the same government giving out a permit, the same government, when it has to collect taxes, is not aware of these people being in the country. Just some examples there. On the POA2, effective risk management, often countries have no clue on the various risks they have of losing out on taxpayer payments. So do they have a system that is effectively looking at risk and alerting them and showing them which cases to focus on? I can go on and on with each of these performance outcome areas, but you will understand that software is very much needed as a tool for the tax official to do his work in the most efficient way possible. So that brings me back to islands. And one thing you will see is that many island tax administrations are using software developed 10 to 20 years ago. And that's a lot. Of course, they've had some small changes, but the core of these systems is still very old. Just to put it a bit more visual, back then, we had these kind of screensavers. If we wouldn't touch our computer for a while, this would start showing. I mean, some of you might remember this. Some of you might be too young to remember this. But the systems we're using have this age already. So while we're living now in a world where we are constantly updating our apps, even the apps that are not very important to us, as soon as we see our phone notifying us of a new version, we want to have that new version. People say over 90% of people will update their applications within 2 or 3 weeks of a new release. So why, if we personally, individually, give so much attention on having the latest software, the latest tools in our personal life, why are we accepting that our governments, our tax administrations that should be motoring the whole development of our nation are so much back in time when it comes to technology? I think there's a lot to gain there for many islands. And I understand that it's not easy. This photo might as well be my phone. And sometimes your phone is broken, but it's still working. And you might have like this dilemma. Like, you know, you need a new phone, but you know it's costly, first of all. You know, you have certain files that you're afraid that you will lose out on if you change to a new phone. Maybe you're saying, you know what, I can handle with this phone for another year, and then I'll buy a newer model next year. I have other priorities this year. The same thing is often the case for tax administrations. There are other competing priorities. Yes, tax administration software costs a lot. Sometimes in the bigger countries, you would see budgets that are higher than the overall IT budget for island nations. Yes, there's a big issue there with people being afraid of losing data from their current systems. But all of this is true, but there is a solution to that. And basically that's why we are a niche player who really focuses on the solution. How can we bring island nations over to the latest technologies in order to have efficient tax administration. The solution we as Bearingpoint developed is called the Public Services Suite. The Public Services Suite was developed and is already implemented in various countries, really to solve these challenges. So we've solved challenges of technology, bringing all the best practices globally into this kind of software to really help tax officials to process taxes in the best way possible. It's also about not looking specifically to taxes, but looking more broadly to your taxpayer population. As mentioned before, there's a lot of linkages between processes of permitting and licensing, processes of social security. If government is paying out benefits, shouldn't the same government also know about these tax payers when collecting? And this whole 360 view is really what we try to solve for countries based on these solutions. So each of these solutions is now up and running. Just to give you an overview, I won't go too much into detail into the software itself, but basically what you would have is you have online portals, of course, secure and privacy oriented with various audits on the software to make sure data is safeguarded, but also with an obvious user interface to make it easy for taxpayers to comply with their obligations. Easy also for the tax official to make sure the checks and balances are in place. Of course, these systems will generate various documents. They will highlight and red flag the cases that are worth looking at. And of course, you will have the right data analytics and reporting to make sure you can make informed decisions. So basically what we say is we make it possible for governments to perform better, faster, and smarter, with technology really as the catalyst to make it possible. So finalizing my presentation with 3 slides about Bearingpoint. Basically, we're very proud to be based and basically born and grown in Curaçao, where we have our main office. Everything I just said is possible thanks to the great people working with us, awesome team of colleagues. We're about 110 professionals right now, all of them university educated. And we're also very proud to be able to offer these high profile job opportunities on the island, showing that it's possible for islands to develop systems for other islands. If I look at our current client base, of course, you would see various islands that are now using our systems at their tax administrations, something we're very proud of. And we're sure that it's really showing that sometimes island people know best what is the solution for other island people. So thank you. And I want to say, let's leapfrog our tax efficiency of our tax administration. It's possible there's some quick wins based on technology. So that makes more dream possible. Even if it's some of them, it's great if you can make them all possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Menno Vink from Bearingpoint, for a very insightful presentation. To introduce our next speaker, I'd like to share this with you. The banking sector of any small island is under constant pressure to innovate. And for 20 years, our next speaker has been developing and implementing technology that brought innovations to the Caribbean banking. Next to helping financial institutions to further digitize their operations and client channels during this COVID pandemic, IBIS Management Associates Inc. has put its knowledge and expert resources to work for developing innovative COVID-19 technology tools and apps for the government of Curaçao. These tools have been and are helping the government to better manage and control the allowed mobility of its citizens during lockdown, and also to manage the controlled opening of its borders for incoming travelers, which is crucial to the requirement to restart any island economy while protecting its citizens for possible COVID-19 import cases. Let's welcome to the stage IBIS management team, Mr. Clark Russell, CEO, and Mr. Morales Isaias, Senior Manager, Business Relations. The stage is yours, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you, Elida. Thank you for that nice introduction. My name is Morales Isaias of IBIS Management Associates, and we are very honored to be part of this platform to share, to display actually our technology and our way of doing business. So as already indicated in the introduction, I would like to basically give a full introduction of the company, right? So IBIS Management, in short, or better known as IBIS, was established in Curaçao, homegrown. So within the Dutch Caribbean, being the sea island of the ABC Islands that form part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands. So the Dutch Kingdom. So IBIS is a leading consulting firm and tax solutions provider for over 20 years already, as has been introduced, with a lot of experience, actually 20 plus years experience of catering to the Caribbean, Central and South American region. So basically the client portfolio and partner portfolio having a heavy footprint within this region. So IBIS Management is specialized in enabling operational excellence and providing basically profitable efficiency by providing financial and digital banking software to streamline both payments as well as regulatory reporting processes at financial institutions, automate back offices, and basically integrate existing systems and business processes for enhanced payment processing in terms of straight-through processing and combating anti-money laundering, as well as combating the financial financing of terrorism. Yeah, so those solutions are solutions that are offered to ensure continuation of the financial institutions' business operations, while also safeguarding their customers' accounts. Yeah, the customers' accounts, as well as the funds in line with the applicable industry standards, and based on the international, regional, and local requirements, as well as the regulations. Yeah, so as such, we are known as being trusted advisors in the industry. Now, today, during basically the evolved era of digitization, and also with the use of new upcoming technologies, like for instance, blockchain, but also with increased online and mobile activity with, for instance, governments on the different levels, but also within healthcare, insurance, and many more different verticals, leading to actually more cyber, or let's say online activity. Yeah, unfortunately, more online and mobile activity also is inherent to increased cyber attacks. Yeah, so basically in line with that, IBIS Management also provides a number of solutions to different sectors, ranging from providing trusted IDs, protecting data, but also customer information. All right. So if we look at what happens now, is that since the start of COVID-19, the COVID-19 pandemic, yeah, the World Health Organization has indicated to have seen a dramatic increase in the cyber attacks. And a number of, let's say, the big 5 consultancy firms have also done research and reported a significant increase in cyber risk. So from the World Health Organization, we've seen that they portray it to have been 5-folded. So you can imagine how that is. So the cyber attacks targets during COVID basically is focused on fraud, ID theft, data breaches, and so on. I'm just checking my time here. So the contribution, basically what IBIS does with this is helping in terms of the additional solutions and services to help companies, both companies, citizens, customers, workers, but also governments, to comply with the social distancing and staying home. And the staying home or working from home measures to aid safeguarding our communities, combating the increased cybersecurity attacks, while ensuring the continuation of basically our economy. Yeah, and in this case, they are securing basically workforces through allow remote access, combating the what we call remote worker endpoint security in terms of multi-factor providing multi-factor authentication on remote access as well as desktop access. But also touchless authentication and single sign-on possibilities, which we refer to as passwordless access, for instance, for mainly healthcare and insurance workers and others, other workplaces, to basically prevent COVID-19 or virus contamination and spread, right? Next to that, also digital remote mobile ID proving, which enables the remote verification of identities and remotely and securely to perform customer onboarding, yeah, for account opening and these things. And last but not least, digital signing solutions. So these are basically the solutions that aid next to the ones that have already been mentioned in terms of combating the COVID, to basically ensure the company access, because during these times, many employees need access to company systems and so on, and business need to continue while we still have to be vigilant of these threats. Okay. I see that my time is up. My colleague Clark Russell has much more interesting stuff to share. So basically, I would love to hand over to him. I'm sure you will enjoy that part of the presentation. So in this case, without further ado, I want to hand over to Clark Russell, who has been introduced as the CEO of IBIS Management. Thank you.
Thank you, Morales. You need to stop sharing your screen.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining our session, and a special thanks, of course, to the organization of Island Summit for hosting this great event. What I'm going to share and show you this afternoon is how the government of Curaçao has been using secure mobile technology to help protect Curaçao and its citizens against the local spread of the virus, but also to manage the controlled opening of our borders. Although in the last weeks we are experiencing a relative increase of cases, as we identified as the second wave, we as an island have been COVID-free for months, while other jurisdictions unfortunately have been seeing explosive surges in case numbers. Our government has been doing a great job by enforcing drastic measures from early on. We are and have been one of the first island nations that enforced an international close down of our border, while also imposing various strict mobility curfew rules. However, managing curfew exemption requests has proven to be a very difficult task. COVID-19 has not only brought on medical healthcare challenges, but this pandemic has also introduced challenges to protecting the island for the import of the virus by incoming travelers. A border lockdown is devastating for any economy, especially high-dependent island economies like we are. So after remaining COVID-free for months, the borders needed to be reopened in a controlled manner by allowing travelers in from low-risk countries. This was much needed in order to slowly restart the tourism industry. I will cover 2 online mobile systems that we rapidly developed and have implemented or are implementing that directly tackle these above mentioned challenges. The first one I'm going to show you is managing the and controlling the on-road mobility of essential workers. Next to locking our borders for incoming travelers, our government enforced phases of limited to non-social gathering, grouping, social distancing, shelter at home, as well as various curfew days. During all these mobility measures, the monitoring and control on the street by law enforcement was a key element, as only essential businesses were allowed to be on the street at certain times. So about the business mobility management and police street control app. Our island crisis team who are needing a solution that could make it possible for so-called essential business workers to apply for lockdown exception permits. So lockdown exceptions are permits. So lockdown exceptions are the permits for workers of essential businesses that allow them to commute to their work, to their work and back, or perform their work on the road during a curfew or shelter at home period. These exemptions are based on a national decree and were applied or are applied for by businesses through an online form, while the actual processing of these applications were done manually by staff of the crisis team. And this is done, of course, by the thousands of incoming applications by only a small team or a handful of people. If and when approved, these exception letters would then be printed out and actually hand-signed and distributed through either normal post or through a pickup. So in practice, workers going to their job, if and when they were stopped on the street by the police during curfew, they were required to identify themselves with an ID, while also handing over the physical exemption letter that confirmed that they had the right to be on the road at that time. This police check exposed the police as well as the person on the street to the risks, of course, of infection, and social distancing guidelines could not be adhered to. While the close interactions with the persons were also inevitable. Next to that, the exception letters were easy to counterfeit and could not be revoked automatically when required. Every part of the process was prone to human error and contained quite some loopholes. So the solution we rapidly developed for the government and implemented is a fully end-to-end digitized platform and system that supports actually all the steps of the process, from the online application process, the verification and approval of the staff by the crisis team, but also the automatic creation and distribution of electronic exemption QR codes for each essential worker. This unique code had an active and inactive status linked to it. So they could be revoked and activated when required. The essential worker could now either print the code and stick it against the inside of the windshield of the car, or keep it available on their mobile device when required. In order to control and verify the validity of the permits issued or the persons on the road, we additionally also built a police control scanning app. And this was an app that the police had on their mobile device. This control app made it digitally possible to scan QR codes and do verification in real time, and check if the permit, as well as who is walking around with the letter or the QR code, is supposed to be or has the right to be on the road. So I have a short animation that I'd like to share. So under lockdown and curfew mandate, only essential workers are allowed to be on the road. So companies that qualify need to apply for a mobility permit or an exemption through an online portal. And this portal requires the businesses to also, of course, upload the required documents and pictures to identify the persons when they're being scanned by the law enforcement on the road. And after approval, of course, automatically letters are generated and sent off electronically to the companies, who will then distribute these letters to their workers who are allowed to be on the street. The relevant authority will either approve or decline the application through a dashboard that they have access to. So this is an impression of the dashboard, how the staff can approve or decline the application. So on the street, the police can verify the validity of the permit in real time, as well as the person carrying it, carrying the permit through scanning the QR code using the app. So on the fly, if one of the workers is or the permits is declined, the police will see the face of the carrier of the person having the permit, and they will then know that the person is allowed to be on the street, yes or no. So during curfews and/or lockdown, the police roadblocks are set up to control car and person traffic. Now with the control app and the application, roadblocks are much efficient, and the controls are fully digitized. So the benefits of this control app, fully digitized. The application is now done in 24 to 48 hours. It's a full online interaction with the company doing the application. Police control on the street are done without physical contact or close personal interaction with the use of the QR code. Permits that are revoked are disabled in real time. Fraud and counterfeit permits are not possible anymore. So this is a step towards more efficient use of digitization. Let's have a closer look now at the app that the police is using. The app will be running on a mobile device of the law enforcement agent and exclusively linked, of course, to the officer performing their job. So first of all, of course, the officer will log into their to the app. The app has also a built-in license plate scan option for future use. So the officer taps on the QR code, and this will then activate the QR code reader, and the app then retrieves the data of the QR code in real time to verify that this person is allowed to be on the street. They will also see additional information based on the route that the person is driving, as well as the valid time on the road. All scans are managed through a dashboard for the police, so they know exactly when scans were done, by whom, and also if the scan was successful or not. So this is also reliable management information that the police can use for managing the various roadblocks that they have on the are managing at that point. The second app or application that I want to share with you today is the COVID health tracker system and border control app. Locking our borders for incoming travelers did have great results in keeping our communities COVID-free for months. However, a border lockdown is devastating for our economy. So after remaining COVID-free, the borders need to be opened by allowing travelers from low-risk countries back in. This was much needed in order to slowly restart our tourism industry. But how do you manage a controlled opening of borders? Firstly, of course, by identifying high-risk countries and keeping the borders closed for travelers coming in from those countries directly. Also setting up strict pre-testing rules for incoming travelers. test results needed to be negative, of course, and also shared 48 hours before traveling. Setting up isolation and quarantine procedures for incoming travelers that qualify for that process. Consistent and close follow-up with incoming traveler on any possible symptoms that might arise during their stay when they are on our island. These are just a few of the measures in place that help in the controlled opening of our borders. This process has been underway in a manual manner and could not be managed in that way anymore. And due of course to the number of qualifying travelers that want to enter our country. The solution we rapidly developed and is being implemented at this point is fully end-to-end and digitized and supports actually all steps of the process. From the online registration process for incoming travelers, which includes the upload of the recent PCR test results that are required, the download of a health communication and monitoring app, also the generation of a unique traveler QR code assignment, as well as automated red flagging based on travel history. For example, travelers that have traveled through high-risk countries before coming to Curaçao. Upon arrival, the QR code of the traveler will be scanned by the border control officer through their border control scanning app, and which will activate the traveler within the monitoring database of the Health Services Department, and the monitoring will start at that point. The traveler will be prompted automatically during the first 7 days of their stay to log any COVID symptoms either through the app, which is then they're automatically prompted to do so, or they will also be called by the Health Services Department to verify if no COVID symptoms are being experienced. After 14 days after entering our country and no symptoms are tracked or traced, this will then, the user will be removed from the system. So let's have a brief look at the solution. So before traveling to Curaçao, the traveler registers their request to visit the Curaçao through the PLC form, the passenger locator card, online. The intelligence built into the platform determines the risk that this incoming traveler may bring to Curaçao, of course, based on possible travel history. The traveler has to test, of course, negative for COVID 2 days before traveling to Curaçao, while test results need to be uploaded to the PLC form. The traveler is required to download the Health Tracker app to manage its online application as well as the communication with the health services. The app will be a digital communicator between the traveler and the epidemiology team. The traveler will receive via email its application with their unique QR code assigned. The QR code is also linked to the app, which is now installed on their mobile device. The traveler will go through some easy steps of registration, which I will browse through a bit, making sure that the app is registered and linked to the correct phone number. I need to look at my time. Also, a QR code will be available in the app itself. And upon arrival at the airport, or at the harbor, the immigration officer will use their mobile device to scan the unique QR code assigned to the traveler, which will activate the user or the traveler as entering Curaçao. Yes. The dashboard, and finally, so that's the part, and sorry to have to wrap it up like this. However, my name is Clark Russell, CEO and founder of IBIS Management, and thank you for your attention. And don't forget to pass by the virtual booth to get more information about our solutions.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Clark. Very interesting, very, very good solution to manage this COVID-19 pandemic. We use this system in the government, and I work personally with it, and I can recommend all other countries or islands to engage with IBIS management for this system. It will make life a lot easier. Our last speaker for this afternoon is we have René Reumer, CEO of Dutch Caribbean Securities Exchange, and Diana Intriago, Commercial Advisor, Latin America. Islands are often dependent on the local capital market for investment capital for their businesses. Curaçao is a pioneer in the international financial services business, delivering international trust and tax services to international businesses for decades, since the Second World War. Growing companies on small islands often need additional investment capital to fund their growth. They often cannot acquire equity capital or loans for growth. On the other hand, wealthy individuals often cannot find profitable, curated investment opportunities locally. If you are looking for opportunities to find capital for growth of your company or looking for investment opportunities outside the local capital market, listen to the following opportunity of our Dutch Caribbean Securities Exchange. So Diana and René, you can take it over.
Yes, thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you, Vanessa.
To start with, congratulations to the speakers that went before us. We will do our utmost to meet your standards, and we can discuss later on whether we accomplish that. Before we start, of course, also on our side, or from our part, a thanks a million to the Virtual Island Summit organizers. I know that last year we were planning to participate. At the last moment we couldn't, and this year, thank God, through Vanessa and the Ministry of Economic Development, we were able to participate. I think you know, if you look at the previous presentations, and you know, and the whole idea of the island summit, let's be honest, if there's one thing we islanders or islands in the world all have in common, it is that our own island is absolutely the center of the world. And it's a good thing that we think so, even though often not very practical. Having said that, if we look at the Caribbean Securities Exchange, people may ask, yeah, okay, but why you know, a securities exchange in Curaçao? It's a very small island. We've discussed that already, or we have mentioned that we're about 160,000 people. So isn't that a little strange? Well, no, it's not. And in Vanessa's brief introduction, it was also already mentioned. International financial services is a big thing for Curaçao. Since the 1940s, basically, I always say, you know, we basically invented the trust business. And till this day, there is quite some activity in this area. The rules have changed, the practices have changed, but Curaçao is still servicing international finance to a high degree. A good thing is that, of course, that we form, and we've mentioned that before, that we do form an autonomous country within the Kingdom of the Netherlands, and with respect to international finance, a couple of other conditions are always very important. It is that, of course, that you are OECD and European Union compliant, which we are. Political government, we'll leave that for what it is for now, but it's also pretty stable, has always been. You know, we have a fairly good functioning democracy. What I think is very important is that the DCSX is directly also supervised by the, I say here, CBCS, that's the Central Bank of Curaçao and St. Martin. The Central Bank, as a matter of fact, just a nice small historic information, is the oldest of its kind, supervisory authority of its kind in the Western Hemisphere. So the Dutch Caribbean Securities Exchange developing a capital market in Curaçao. but also startups and SMEs from all over.
Do you think, René, maybe Curaçao is a bit small for having a stock exchange? Because I wanted to tell you also in the poll we did in this Patable app, more of 50% of the people knew there was a securities exchange in the Dutch Caribbean. So maybe you can elaborate a little bit on that.
It's a good question. You know, as I said, while in Curaçao, the first point, you know, it's basically an addition or a sort of a logical next step of our international financial services department. I agree with you, and I think that's embedded in your question. You know, to purely have a securities exchange for only our local economy, I think would not be a good idea because the economy is too small. At the same moment, we have, and we'll get to that in a moment again, we have one problem, not only on all of our islands, but all over the world, and it is that there's a lot of small and mid-sized enterprises that need financing, that need additional financing, and when I say additional, I mean in addition to the, let's say, the more old-fashioned ways of financing, which is of course banking loans and what have you. There is a humongous need for it. The only thing is that there are not a lot of securities exchanges in the world that are, let's say, affordable, and we'll get to that in a moment. So you know, to repeat, indeed, the DCSX is very clearly geared towards functioning as an international exchange for the listing and trading in both domestic and international securities. And I think the international part is very important. If we look at what the DCSX has nowadays, we've been operating now for about 10 years, about 85% to 88% of the listings that we have are international listings, and the rest is domestic. So in that sense, while we are definitely not content yet with let's say the total amount, we are extremely happy that the international portion indeed does form the majority of the business that we're providing. Very quickly, and there I repeat a little bit what I've said before. So we wish to create prosperity by connecting investment opportunities with investors. I think that's the most important thing. And that leads you to the vision and to the desire that we have, and it is indeed to become the regional financial center of choice for listing of securities.
And René, maybe you can elaborate more on the difference between a crowd-funded platform, because maybe it can be confusing, like a securities exchange and a crowdfunding platform may be confusing.
Yeah, well, I know what you mean when I say, you know, connecting investment opportunities to investors. Of course, a lot of people, a lot of our listeners will immediately think about crowdfunding platforms, and rightfully so, because that is, let's say, the past 6 to 7 years, especially in the US and in Western Europe. The crowdfunding activities whereby a business basically directly approaches the broader public to invest in them for a specific business deal that they have, that has prospered a lot. Crowdfunding platforms have prospered a lot. As a matter of fact, I would really recommend everybody, if you're just slightly interested in this whole thing about, you know, the benefits of a small exchange versus or compared to the benefits of a crowdfunding platform, go to our website. We have, for the past year or so, we have been on a very regular basis been posting articles where we have tried, educational articles that is, where we have tried really to let's say, to discuss the issues, these type of issues, connecting investment opportunities to investors, including crowdfunding platforms, the difference between shares and bonds and what have you, all that stuff, at a let's say a level that is understandable for everybody, also if you do not have a financial background. And I think that's pretty unique, and I must say I'm pretty proud of what our people have done in that sense. Very quickly, how is because, you know, a lot of people, sometimes people call me and say, yeah, you know, but the DCSX exchange, what is it? I mean, is it yours? Is it owned by the central bank? No, it's not mine, and it's also not owned by the central bank. It is here in the middle. You see, this is the exchange. And then you have here, you have, let's say, the central bank supervision. Here you have, this is more the operational side, which we are not gonna delve into too much at this moment. But what I wanted to show you here is this part. This is really important. If you have a business and you want to attract capital, whether it is through issuing a bond, in other words, basically you're issuing bonds, you're getting small loans from a lot of investors, or you want to issue shares, which is of course a different plan, because there you sort of invite the public to become a co-owner with you. To do so, you cannot come directly to the DCSX, but you have to, here you see listings, you have to contact one of our 20 plus listing advisors. Listing advisors are the parties that will have the first conversation with you, and with whom you will, let's say, brainstorm on whether it's possible, whether it's affordable, how the process works, etc., etc. So that's like a really, really, really important player in the whole listing process on the Dutch Caribbean Securities Exchange.
And also mention, why is it called Securities Exchange? Because it may be also known as stock exchange.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you know, a lot of times in normal language, people talk about a stock exchange. You know, the stock exchange of the United States and stock exchange in Japan and blah blah blah. We have opted to use the name Securities Exchange because we are not only a stock exchange. We are a securities exchange. In other words, companies can list bonds, they can list investment fund shares, equities, DRs, it's depository receipts. And hopefully very soon, that's something that I personally am extremely interested in, crypto assets as a security class. And I put a question mark here.
Crypto, you think it's possible? Or there's any legislation like in place for that? How can it be done?
If you look worldwide, of course, you know, we have a lot of cryptocurrencies, at least they call themselves cryptocurrencies. We have other tokens, digital tokens that companies have issued. And one of the main questions, of course, always by all over the world by two authorities, and that is by, of course, the tax authorities, and by the, let's say, the financial supervisory authorities, the central banks, etc. Is okay. But what is a crypto asset? What is a tokenized? What is a tokenized asset? What is a tokenized security? And to my very humble opinion, we don't need to change a lot of laws. What you need to do is that at the moment that a company needs to attract capital and says, you know, I don't want to do it in the old-fashioned way with shares or bonds, but I want to issue a token, you say, okay, sure, you can issue a token. And then, of course, there's a certain set of rules how you have to do that. But the concept is the same. A company goes out to the public to attract capital. Once you have done that, then the company has to be clear and say, listen, I would like to be treated as if I have now issued, for instance, bonds. The company checks that box, that information is filed, and I'm sure that our friend from Bearingpoint, Menno, you will like that. That information is directly filed with the tax inspectorate. So as of that moment, that company is treated as a company that has issued bonds. Even more, everybody who invests into that company will be considered to have bought bonds. In other words, when the company pays money to the investor, they can call it whatever they want. No, for tax purposes, it's going to be treated as interest income. So it's not, I think, and I may be wrong, but I would love to be challenged on it. You don't need to write a lot of new laws. You can work with the present laws, and the only thing is you have to make a check-the-box selection by the issuer of the security at the beginning of the issuance.
There's a comment. Yeah, there's a comment from.
Sorry, yeah?
No, there's a comment from Solomon Frank. He says it's a great idea to allow crypto because we don't want to stifle innovation. Thanks, Solomon, for your comment.
Thank you for your comment. So very briefly, let me see how many minutes I have. I think I have 5 minutes more. Is that correct? Yes, more or less. So how does a process go? Again, you're a company and you want to raise some capital. You've had your conversations with your bank. The bank at this moment cannot really help you, or they can only partly help you. Let me give you an example. I know of a case whereby a company that has been existing for 7 years, doing a fairly good job. They have their financials, not audited, but their financials. They want to expand. They want to buy over a small competitor. They need about 1 million, in our case in Curaçao, about 1 million guilders. The bank says, you know, I can help you, but only with 350,000 guilders. To me, that's beautiful. It's perfect. Because what this gentleman in this case should do is go to a listing advisor, discuss the issue, tell him that he needs to come up with 350,000 guilders, and that if he comes up with 350,000 guilders, then the bank is willing to lend him another 650. So what you do with the listing advisor, and you as a company holder, you make a plan, you make that was basically step 1. Then you go to step 2, you make an information memorandum wherein basically, again, you explain who you are, what your experience is, why you need the money, what you're going to do with it, in other words, and how you're going to pay it back. That's basically what you need in the information memorandum. And then, of course, some legal stuff and some accounting information. You will have to put some let's say, your financial results of the past 2 years, all that kind of stuff. The moment you've done that, and you issue 350,000 guilders in shares, and you're approved, then you are you can register. You're registered with the DCSX, and of course you can go back to your bank and say, "See, I did it. We managed." Now there's one step. When I said I did it, a lot of people think that if they go to a securities exchange, that means that they will get the money. No, you have to, and that's why under step 1, you see that there's also the word brokers. You need to contract somebody, a broker or a financial advisor or somebody who's going to help you sell, in my example of just now, the 350,000 guilders worth of shares. You have to get out there and sell your plan. Talk to the people, you know, rent a little room, invite the folks and do a presentation. Mostly, still for the first time, we recommend that you do it in person, and afterwards, of course, you can follow up with presentations like we have now through Zoom or any other electronic way of marketing. But you have to sell your product, okay? And once you've sold your product, then we got to step 4 and the remaining. Then the investors will transfer their money to the broker. The broker has the money, of course, at a bank. And once the 350 is reached, that 350 can be transferred to you, and you can show it to the bank and say, "See, I raised my 350. What about the loan now?" So that's you know, I really very strongly believe in the combination of the partnering between the public market, the capital market, and the traditional low lending activities of the banks. Here I have, the time is not gonna allow us to get way too much into the details of what exactly is dematerialization of shares and depositing with the custodian. Basically, you have to understand that, of course, we don't work with share certificates anymore. Everything is digitally recorded and processed, and that's basically what it entails.
Okay, maybe, I don't know how many minutes we have left. Maybe for the next time we can check about the differences between.
Yeah, very quickly, Vanessa, if you give me 30 seconds.
And the timing of the process, that's it. We can close with that.
Yes, what you saw now was the listing process for a public offering. Basically, the one for a private placement is exactly the same. Here we sort of, in a graph, and of course we can share the presentation later with all of you. In a graph, you have all the steps exactly again in a clear oversight. The benefits, a lot of benefits for a company if you decide to list. They're mentioned here, and of course we can share that also with you guys. In one final remark, people are always afraid that it is very expensive. It takes very, very long. None of them is true, at least not with the DCSX. Count on 2 to 3 months, and the expenses are really, really very affordable. So I think that with that, Vanessa's gonna throw me out now.
Thank you.
I'm going to throw you out. Thank you very much for this presentation. DCSX is very, very good and strong and growing. So we really recommend you to take a look at their website. We share the links in Pathable and in the Zoom call to visit the websites of each companies. And of course, you can contact them all. And I would like to ask everybody to open their camera and unmute their mic. If there are any last questions before we leave the platform. An hour and a half goes by very fast, but in a nutshell, we were able to showcase some island-to-island solutions to other islands to use, for other islands to use and implement in their environment. So if there are any questions, we would love to hear them. Otherwise, we will be available. Island-to-island solutions is a concept that we will continue showing and organizing events under this concept. So you will be able to learn more about what Curaçao is doing to make our life easier, but also that can make your lives easier as well. So any questions? Rooney, do you have a question for the panel?
Yes, I have a question. Thank you, Vanessa. I want to ask to Mr. Clark Russell, what were the benefits of this solution for the government? Like the most important benefits for your solution?
Yeah, I think one of the most important part is the efficiency and the control that you get through digitization. So on the street, you have when using, for instance, the control app, the mobility control app, there is no interaction, no physical interaction between the police and the people on the road, but also making sure that the controls being done are being logged and managed in a way that you have sufficient information that can be worked with. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question for Anthony, for Tony. Tony, can you explain the difference between OWAC and SWAC?
Yeah, okay. Well, I think the key difference is that SWAC is using deep ocean water that's naturally cold. Yeah, about 5 to 6 degrees. Well, about 5 degrees. That's where, from that layer, they have to pump up water. And we don't use it. We use just surface water, and that varies between 24 and 28 degrees centigrade. That's the biggest difference.
Okay. Any other question?
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Morales Isaias. As you know, cybersecurity is at the top of our mind when we talk about apps. How was IBIS able to contribute from a cybersecurity point of view perspective to the COVID-19 measures?
Yeah, so thank you for the question. With a very long year partnership that we have with one of the top-notch cybersecurity providers in the industry, Entrust Data Card. IBIS Management is actually the Caribbean representatives for Entrust Data Card, and they have recently combined their technology and launched actually a cloud solution that supports this. And basically we're able to combine both combating these risks as well as eliminating the user friction, so to speak. So to balance it off so that it still remains very secure, can be integrated and still is very user friendly. So basically those three combinations made it successful and made us able to package that and combine it to combat COVID with this. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I have one question for Manu. It was asked in Patable. If they are asking.
I just want to give you a 1 minute warning before you get cut off.
Okay.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Okay. Do you see any transition towards Bitcoin payment schedule anytime in the near future? Also, the integration as part of the payment option before we are cut off?
Where we're cut off, short answer. From a technology perspective, there's no reason there's no limitation really. It's not a challenge. It's more from a policy perspective where there are some valid arguments not to accept Bitcoin as payment for government yet. So on the short term, my expectation is that it will not be the case. I know on subnational level, some states have already accepted Bitcoin for tax payments, but on national level, I don't see this happening on a very short term. But let's see, it's an interesting thing to follow.
If you give me 1 minute or a second, just to answer Valeria Tiefer, it is important to clarify that OWAC is 100% sustainable. There is no environmental effects at all.
Good.
Wonderful. Rooney?
I just want to thank everybody for being here and just contact all the sponsors, all the companies.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great session. See you next time. Thanks for
Thank you very much
for the partnership. Great.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.